DDG episode 195. My name is Dave, and I'm joined by a pixelated Michael.
Hopefully I'm not too pixelated. Just found out my cat has broken my my computer's antenna for my network.
I think so. I just really think somebody stole your webcam, and you have like an 18 frame per second webcam.
No, I don't have the Dave special camera that only I get to see.
Yeah. Hey. I can buy a better one, but I don't like you that much.
Yeah. It's fine. Dave, as far as I know, he's green because that's basically what I see when I look at Dave.
Do you remember those?
Discord.
Like, I think you always refer to it this way. I don't know if you've ever said this on the show before, but it's like those old like night vision war cam video. Like
it looks like your camera came in like a collector's edition for Modern Warfare 1.
Yeah. With a little Bluetooth earpiece that's like camouflage color.
Yes, exactly. Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell is gonna just pop up behind you.
And I've actually seen, I've seen like the particular webcam I have, like it's just stupid cheap. Like I could just buy it, at this point in time, like a C920 for like $50 if I wanted to, but it's no big deal. It's literally so again, full disclosure for everybody, we use Discord, and we stream obviously twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming. OBS cannot support OBS or Discord. I don't remember which one it is. It's OBS, I believe. Cannot support multiple webcam outputs. So I can't output myself to Discord and output myself to OBS. Once I output myself to OBS, Discord doesn't find the camera at all. It like OBS controls the whole domination of the cam. So there's this like Dollar General webcam thing that I have. I think it's Aukey, like Aukey.
That sounds like
I've seen a couple. Yeah, I've seen a couple YouTube videos of somebody going, "This is how you take a $20 webcam and adjust the lighting and all this stuff." And I'm like, I've tried that, and I'm like, they must have different cams than I have.
It's unnecessary. You have a good one for the one that goes to Twitch.
Yeah,
I have a good one that goes to Twitch.
Yeah.
But not when my antenna's broken. So
it's fine. All right, so we are obviously Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts every Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern time on podcast services around the world and current countries and all that other stuff that all fits into that globe. So if you are listening to us for the first time, please consider subscribing if you choose. Downloading the episode helps. Sharing the episode helps. Leaving a review helps. Whether that's stars or points or if you feel so led to write words, that helps a lot too. It's been a little while since we got a review, as well as just like if you listen to us on like Google Podcast, I think it's called Apple Podcast, Apple Music, I don't even know.
Spotify.
I think on Spotify you can individually review episodes, I believe. So any of those things that anybody's that's willing to just kind of share the show or do any of that stuff that's like free, it just requires a little bit of your time. Like we would appreciate that. There are other links in the show notes for you to join and support the community in other ways if you choose to do that. And like we just mentioned, we are on Twitch, so twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, and we are a Twitch affiliate, so you can subscribe to us on Twitch that way if you want. Whether you do that through just straight subscription of paying the $5 or $6 or whatever it is as you're willing to do, or linking your Twitch account and your Amazon Prime account to get Prime Gaming. That just doesn't auto renew, so just kind of check those out. And hopefully we do a little bit of a better job this busier, like it's kind of busier gaming season and holiday season of maybe streaming once a week as more stuff comes out and having fun with the community, and that way it can remind you to subscribe. So other than that, I'm going to throw it over and we're going to start hitting some of our headlines.
Yeah, Dave, we talked about this before we recorded, but I was like, man, it was a real struggle to find some positive news out there because it's just it's a bad 7 days in the gaming industry. I don't even have all of the bad news that happened over the last week. So here are the highlights or lowlights, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
I think there's one positive story in here, but the first one is something I know Dave's going to be like, but Nintendo announced today they're shutting down the online features for 3DS and Wii U in 2024. So they put out a tweet and a statement saying that the 3DS Wii U online connectivity, so online multiplayer, online rankings, all that stuff that requires an internet connection to hit a server, is going to be shut down in April 2024 for those two systems. Earlier this year, they had shut down the stores for those systems where you can't download any more games for them. So this is just like that last step they need to pretend the Wii U never happened. This means, like multiplayer games that are still popular on that platform are going to go away. I know people probably still play Splatoon on there. Smash Brothers is still popular on there, even though the ultimate is, the ultimate version of Smash Brothers, as well as stuff like, Mario Maker, which a sequel did make it to the Switch, but it wasn't as good as the original that's on the Wii U. So that would be going away. Nintendo is sparing one game or application, and that's the Pokemon transfer tool, Pokemon Bank. That's the only thing that's going to survive the 3DS and the Wii U. And that's the tool that people use to transfer their Pokemon and save their Pokemon all the way back to the Game Boy. Pokemon can be transferred up. And it is a hell of a process to do, but it's shitty Nintendo's doing this. I understand the business implementations, but at least they know the Pokemon Bank is something people would still go to because people still transfer their Pokemon from like the Game Boy Color, all the way to the Switch. And you need to go from platform to platform in order to do it. So, Dave, Nintendo being Nintendo, I know this isn't that big a deal to you, but...
Well, no, I mean, I get it. Anytime any shop closes kind of sucks, but... Yeah. If you had to guess, what year was the last 3DS game released?
Probably last year, I want to say. Because 3DS is weird. Like, it's one of those things people could make games without really much work from Nintendo.
So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at I'm trying to find like maybe even so I didn't realize like Shovel Knight came out on the 3DS.
There's so
Shovel
many
Knight,
great games
Cards,
that came out on the 3DS. Like, I'm more upset about the 3DS being shut down than the Wii U, because the Wii U was like 6 million sold or something crazy, like 10 million sold.
So Kirby's Epic Yarn was March of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the last first party Nintendo Direct that
first party.
Again, first party Nintendo. Like I'm prefacing it, because like Shakedown Hawaii, but and then like starting as you start since then I'm just going through here really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This website's hard to read. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, I can't tell. These are all to be. Actually, I'm sorry. Those are all to be announced. So like 9 games since like 2019.
Yeah. Which. Go on before I go.
It's kind of like they stopped supporting. I mean, for the most part, the platform has stopped being supported. Roughly, it's after the Switch has established itself, and I feel like that if they're going to invest anything into it, like again, I'm with you. I wish that there was like videogamesarchives.com that somehow that you could put this stuff down there and still be able to go get your stuff. But the unfortunate part is, like, I'm sure somebody would hack or break that or something like that. But I mean, like you've mentioned too, like how long is long enough to get access to stuff in the best way possible. Emulation has, I think, significantly increased the way that people play games. I think since I've mentioned it out loud to you, and I think maybe you sent me something, but like my YouTube For You feed could be filled with ROG Ally emulations.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. It sucks to have a store close. Yes, I agree with you. Between the two, 3DS is significantly more important than Wii U.
Yeah.
But
especially that's a harder thing to emulate because of how
the two screens. Yeah.
Like, there are ways to do it on PC, but like, I'm sure people, if the multiplayer game is important enough to a community, no matter how small, they will find a way to get the emulator to run.
Well, and to be fair, they're at least giving them similar. I think going back to like the PS3 store before they backtracked on it. Like, what did they give us? Like 6 months?
Yeah, 4 months. It was like the end of summer.
And this is like a year.
Yeah, this is
like
April.
They're saying, yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna see, less than a year. So, like, as much time as it takes for a woman to make a baby, you now have this time to figure out what games you either want to buy or ensure they're downloaded. But I'm also not aware, to your point, like what I think you're talking about too, is that as vast of the library of the 3DS was, I don't even know what the internal storage of a 3DS was at one point in time.
You can do an SD card. You needed an SD card if you wanted to do anything with it. But for the most part, the thing that's going to suck is it was like those online features are going to die out, and some games do need those features, like a Super Mario Maker. That's basically the only one on the Wii U that I'm just like, that really sucks, because they couldn't transition that game over to the Switch that well because it required like the tablet from the Wii U. But that's just one game, so it's like I completely understand. But the idea that they were able to save Pokemon Bank, they're still like, people use this enough, either shows you two things. It shows you that they could save some games if they wanted, or two, only people are using Pokemon Bank still, and no one's really touching those other games. Because if it's only like, less than 100 people still connecting to those servers, like, there's no point of keeping it on.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand.
And I feel
aspect.
like if there was that many, like, if they're gonna keep the Pokemon Bank open, they're obviously having enough pings to it, enough hits. And I know you mentioned it, and I'm sure it's viable and it's valuable. But if Smash Brothers was being played as much as it is led to believe, then they would have kept it going. Somehow.
Yeah, and also they have an incentive to, if there are, say, like 100 people still playing it on the Wii U, to tell those people, like, Ultimate exists and it's on the Switch. This is the one you should be playing.
Yeah. They just need to release, like, the full version of that game at this point in time. Like, they need to release, like, the whole package.
I'm still waiting for them, and I know Nintendo, if they do that, it's going to be like $90. It's not going to be like, hey, here's everything for $60. It's going to be like, it's $120. I mean, Nintendo's going to Nintendo. Like, I think I'm more bothered by the 3DS losing features, losing its store, than I am about, like, my dear PlayStation 3, because, like, that's almost 20 years old. So, like, I understand that, but the 3DS still seems relatively young. I know it came out in 2010, 2011, so it's like, 12, 13 years old, but it's still too new. But people will find a way. I mean, people found a way to revive, like, shutdown servers for PS3 games without modding your system, so I'm sure people will figure out how to keep some online games that are important running. But Nintendo's going to Nintendo. I'm still telling you, PlayStation, probably before the end of fiscal year, like April 2024, they're probably going to announce, like, the PS3 closing completely. And they probably won't give a year. They'll probably do 90 days like they did last time. So we're going to see, some more stores close down, some more online services close down. And we'll just have to hope, backwards compatibility saves, or in Nintendo's case that they re-release more. Because at least Nintendo's, like, doing really awesome remasters that, for the most part, justify buying the game all over again. But yeah, let's go from that story to this one, which is... Dave, I feel like this is a game that we've heard of the last, like, 2-3 years. That we've been, like, vaguely interested in, but not enough to actually, like, do the legwork to, like, seek out.
I honestly don't know what this is.
Okay, so Sega has canceled Hyenas, which is from Creative Assembly. It was an ambitious PvPvE game, so player versus environment game. Sega announced that this project is being canceled after about 6 years of development. When it was first in development, one of its big inspirations was not the Dave sit down. 6 years ago, this game was inspired by Destiny, when everyone was making the Destiny clone. And apparently the game just wasn't hitting the marks that Sega wanted, and at a certain point, it has been reported that it is the most expensive Sega game ever, or it was at least hitting that point in terms of, like, how much it was costing over the 6 years to develop. And there was a bunch of issues in terms of, like, they switched engines at one point, there was a lack of direction, and all sorts of internal issues just getting this game off the ground. The thing that makes this a little bit interesting is people were playing it. There was, like, a closed alpha or beta earlier this year and sometime last year. So it seemed like it was coming along from at least, like, public acknowledgement 2-3 years ago to alphas and betas this year. But Sega just announced that they're just going to cut ties with the game, cancel it. Creative Assembly apparently were hit with some layoffs, and then also Sega said they had other unannounced games that have been canceled as well. Dave, I know we've talked about Hyenas at least once or twice, but I don't think it's made a big enough impact for us to, like, remember for you, and for me to, like, do the homework of, like, let me get into this beta.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a trailer that is I mean, I literally copy and pasted the word that you typed in the Google Doc, and I typed it in there, and it went to the official site, and you can still join the PC closed beta.
Yeah, they have
it's
not.
Still an option.
That means the person that they laid off from Creative Assembly also ran the website because they did not update the website.
Yeah, so Hyena is a new multiplayer sci-fi FPS from Creative Assembly. Sign up for our closed beta and help us build the FPS of tomorrow. And just looking at it, like, not my cup of tea at all. I think that they, this is, again, 30 seconds looking at this trailer, clicking around on it. This is, there's no nice way to put this. This is, you're trying too hard.
Well, when you hear that, like, as far as we knew, like, publicly, this game has only been in development like 2-3 years, but it turns out it's been in development 6 years. And it seems like when you know that it's been around for 6 years, the trailer kind of makes sense because that looks like something that would have worked 6 years ago. It sounds like definitely. From what I was reading about it, it seemed like it was originally inspired by Destiny. So they're like, let's make a Destiny clone. And then Apex Legends came out and they're like, stop the presses. Let's make an Apex Legends. And they just kept doing that over the course of 6+ years of like pivoting their design choice. And it almost sounds like Creative Assembly was tasked with like, just do whatever the board at Sega wants you to do now with this IP. We see this happen a lot, Dave, in terms of like a game that's in the oven too long, that's constantly being changed. And then you just end up with like something that just doesn't work, or in this case, something that just gets canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, anytime any game gets canceled, that sucks. If this was as expensive as it allegedly was, this is, I guess recently, no, I guess that's more Capcom. I was going to say, this is kind of like the first kind of black eye that Sega's had in a little while, but I guess this is the first like true like thing they've had, at least that we know of, that they've had to say they had to cut it, Yeah,
because for the most part, Sega kind of sticks to their lane. It seemed like this is the first time Sega was going to like kind of pivot from, hey, we make Persona games through Atlas and we make Sonic the Hedgehog games. This is them, and the Yakuza games. This seems like this was their first attempt in a long time of like, we're going to go for one of the big markets, and it just wasn't going to hit. But the fact that like this has showed up at multiple like E3 or Summer Game Fest things, and it didn't really register with you. It barely registered with me just because I think Hyenas was just a bad name. Like, I hope that was a project name.
Yeah. Well, it had a logo.
Yeah, it had a logo.
It had Hyena logo with like X's in the eye. Like, this is, I don't know. This is the concern that I have with X Defiant too. X Defiant is at least, basing it off of Ubisoft history, like or prior IPs to kind of build its maps and build its world. This just, I don't know, man. Like, this just looked like it was just over the top, like trying to mix the short form content at the time that wasn't growing fast enough yet, and now it's grown faster than the game has grown. What was the
Ubisoft one that they abandoned? That battle royale that was abandoned by Ubisoft. Hyperdrift? No.
Hypercat. Yeah.
I gotta Google it, Dave.
Hyperdrone, Hyperdrift,
Hyperscape.
Yeah.
It looks like,
I think I said that.
It looks like a combination of Hyperscape and then that Lawbreakers game. I think it was called the Cliffy B.
Yeah,
game.
That was Lawbreakers. Yep.
Yeah, it looks like a combination of Lawbreakers and Hyperscape. But this just shows you how competitive that market is in terms of like trying to crack in that market, and then also just like the fear some companies have of like feeling they need to chase the next big thing as opposed to just focusing on one idea. The idea that they set out to make a Destiny, and in the middle of doing that, they saw Apex Legends success and are like, let's do that instead. And Destiny and Apex Legends are completely different ideas. Yeah. So the idea that they were like, we can easily
and again,
just
this. looking at this trailer, like when I was looking at the trailer, like again, I understand that I am biased towards Destiny. I fully embrace and accept that. I didn't really see a lot of PvE in this trailer.
Yeah.
So I seem to see a lot of PvP, which, the mix already is interesting, and I mean, right off the bat, the little bit we've seen on Vidocs is as this like, I promise you, like they looked at Marathon and were like, shit.
Yeah, no, and that's probably something that they were like, oh, we're gonna release around Marathon, cool. Let's see what happens, and just wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, or whatever. Even the couple of games Sony's releasing, Concord and Free Dollar or whatever. I can't remember.
It's a dollar symbol game. Fair Games. Fair Game.
Yeah, Fair Games.
Yeah.
So it it is what it is as they look at their window of time when they're going to release and what is, and I guess too, like 6 years ago they made a foundation of the game. You built the foundation of your game, and now it's 6 years later. Everybody's house is different. The new houses that are being built, the foundation is different. But they had already invested so much money into that foundation that you realistically can't. It's unfortunate, but it's probably cheaper to say screw it. Like we saw this with one of the movies. Cut it.
Yeah.
Done. Like instead of build the foundation, instead of like, oh, how do we fix it? Oh, we got to go back down here to square one and rebuild. And the CEO of the company's like, nope, done.
Yeah. And it could be one of those things where Sega's just like, okay, we need to pivot again, but instead of pivoting on this foundation, we're gonna build somewhere else, because it's just like you can't just keep reusing like assets and all that, build the building blocks.
Yeah.
But luckily, Creative Assembly wasn't closed or anything like that. Creative Assembly have been like consistently good for Sega in terms of like making PC specific games that are profitable for Sega. So they might either go back to that, or Sega won't get overly ambitious with the projects that they want to do with them.
Yeah.
Dave, so there was one good news story that I included on here. This will be brief. Red Dead Redemption gets 60 frames FPS patch on the PS5. So the port was brought to the PS5 and Switch, or the PS4 and Switch, not too long ago, but people were upset because it was just 1080p, 30 frames per second. But Rockstar quietly, unannounced, just added a 60 frames toggle on the game if you play it on PS5. So, yay, I might actually pick this up during Black Friday now when it's on sale, because I don't want to pay I think it's like $50 or $60 on PlayStation. But why they couldn't do this a month ago and not advertise this on the box is infuriating, but at least it came.
Well, this is the interesting part is like I this is where like game development obviously is hard.
Yes.
And it's like super super hard because like hasn't it been running at 60 frames on Xbox Series like since it came over through Smart Delivery or whatever?
Yes, but that was the Xbox's system doing the work for them.
Okay. So I'm trying not to be like this, but why can't Sony's system do the work for them?
No, and that is it's a valid point. And like, and of course, like Xbox is like, we're not going to help you. Like,
well, especially when we heard about the PS4 Pro, they're like, it'll just do it. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, well, what do you mean? And the developers are like, you just put the game in and just Uncharted just runs better.
Yeah,
Horizon just looks better.
It's not quite
better.
like the uncapped box, but it was along those lines.
They're like, it just happens. Yeah. And then that's kind of what Xbox came out and said with Smart Delivery. They're like, oh, well, like we don't understand. What are you talking about? Like you put your disc in and it works. You download your digital copy and it works. To be
fair, Xbox very much with the backwards compatibility program was like they went to developers like Rockstar and were like, we'll do all the work.
Yeah.
And Rockstar was like, cool, whatever. And this was an instance where Rockstar was like, well, we're not going to do the work, but apparently they were in the middle of working on it. They just had a weird deadline that they had to meet. But I don't get it. I'm sure it's sold.
No, this is great. Yeah. If anybody hasn't played Red Dead Redemption or has been on the fence about getting it or didn't, or picking up this version of it or whatever, like, cool. Like now you can buy your PS4 version, like you said, find it in one of those bins, or wait for this is to your point. This is like that prime like Wednesday night before Thanksgiving at 11:30 at night purchase or whatever that you buy like Wario tweets and you're like, damn it. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I always knew it was going to be that. It's going to be the thing where it's not, because it's a Rockstar game. It's not even going to drop super low. It's going to go to like $29.99. And I'm like, fuck it, perfect. Even though I think I have it on the Xbox Series X, but I still like trophies more than achievements, so I'm sad.
Yeah.
So I'll probably pick it up on PlayStation. But good on Rockstar. I like the unnecessary humbleness of like, we're not even gonna tell anybody. Like, people are just gonna load up the game and be like, oh, there's a button now to turn 60 frames on. So, all right, Dave. This is why this was probably the most interesting story of the week for me, because it's something that, you know, we've been talking about. I think we just talked about it last week with the Jim Ryan stuff. And of course, I'm talking about Naughty Dog. So Naughty Dog has quietly been hit with layoffs. So according to Kotaku and several LinkedIn posts, Naughty Dog was hit with layoffs. Around 25 people is the count based off what people like did a LinkedIn search for. And it was primarily contractors in Q&A. So quality assurance people were laid off. PlayStation apparently reportedly asked people at Naughty Dog to keep the layoffs quiet, as the industry is currently dealing with a lot of layoffs and they didn't want to deal with the bad press from it, which I think is just like super rude. If that is true, that's a reportedly situation, but to tell people like, don't tell anyone we're firing you is just baffling. This made people question like what's going on with Factions 2, the Last of Us multiplayer thing. And apparently because of this layoffs and all that internal feedback, the game has been put on ice. It has not been canceled, but it's been put on ice. Dave, I'll let you take over before I throw in my logic on this, because I think this makes sense with that last point.
Yeah. To be clear, like, quality assurance people are contracted workers. Like, I would even say that they probably don't even say that they work for Naughty Dog, other than it looks cool on a resume. Literally, you would bounce from place to place to place to place. You do sign a contract, I believe.
A lot of them were let out of their contract early.
Right, so that's concerning to me.
Which also means no severance for them because they're contractors.
Correct. Yes. Yep. So and terminating your terminating your contract early with no official announcement or date or release of your game is concerning, because if it does get off ice, you're going to have to do quality assurance again in the next 2 years, which means bringing people back to do it again, which means wasted funds. Somebody gave me the example of like, oh, well, other studios lay their people after their game launches. Yeah, after the game came out.
Yeah.
So the investment return is the launch of a game. Like, yeah, like I know plenty of PR people that are working on a game until it comes out, and then they just move to another game because they did their job. So like this, like if this game does come out, it will need to have quality assurance done to it again.
Yeah.
So that they will, like I said earlier, they'll have to bring people on to do that. And it also tells me that minimum this is 24 months out.
Yeah.
Minimum.
So when I looked at this and I saw like people were laid off, it's about 5% of Naughty Dog laid off in general. They're about a little under 400 people, and 25-ish people were reduced or were laid off, which completely sucks. Especially if they're not going to get severance, their contract's being terminated early. If you had like a 2-3 year contract with Naughty Dog, you probably moved to where they were potentially, and now life has changed. So I definitely feel for those people, but because it's happening mostly with Q&A, if you do not plan to launch your game before their end of their contract, you probably don't want them on staff for the rest of their contract, which makes sense based off everything we heard about this game in terms of like Bungie poked at it and said there were issues.
Said no.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm sure it's not just Bungie. I don't want to put all that on Bungie, because I'm sure people are going to be like, oh, Bungie's ruining things. I'm sure other people looked at it. Dave, you had pulled up a name before we talked earlier.
Yeah, I have it here. So his name is Anders Howard. He was technically the principal monetization designer, and he had joined Naughty Dog about a year ago
from Epic.
He came from Epic, and he helped design the core foundation of Fortnite's Battle Pass and progression systems. And whether it's Bungie, whether it's somebody like and this is something I didn't hear about, or I don't remember hearing about a year ago, because I've been talking constantly about who is Naughty Dog bringing on to help them with this, because Naughty Dog is a third person linear story driven studio the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't know somebody like this had joined Naughty Dog, which either means, you know, good or bad if it wasn't not enough exposure or enough to cross my radar, but that's neither here nor there. He didn't get laid off. He left.
Yeah, which means there could have been some butting of heads.
Yeah, and I could totally see that where he's like, and I know I use this term a lot, but you know, Naughty Dog wants the Naughty Dog. They want to do what they do, and he's probably like sitting at the table going, okay, like, no, like, yeah, like, that's a really cool idea, but we can't sustain that.
Yeah.
Like, we've heard about their crunch for Last of Us Part 2, or for part 1 at least, and for Uncharted 4, and the delays they faced, and the crunch, and the stress on the studio, through whether it's through, you know, Jason Schreier's books or through any other reports or hearing about stuff from other studios. You know, Naughty Dog is a phenomenal studio, but what they put their people through as they get close to launch is crazy. Again, to be fair, you're talking about once every 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to do something as a games as a service, which is what we believe Factions 2 was intended to be, you need to be able to do something minimally every 90 days.
Yeah.
That doesn't include any seasonal activities, like, you know, or any like holiday driven activities or anything like that. You need to be able to do content drip, and you like it can't be like every season's going to be this epic set piece with, you know, like these undertones of dialogue and cutscenes. Like, they can't afford to do that.
And if you're someone that's your job and you're coming from Epic, one of the only companies that can do that content weekly almost, let alone
but again, Fortnite's content isn't on the scale of what Naughty Dog has been doing.
No. But what I'm saying is that if you come from that mindset of Epic of like, oh, if we grind hard enough, we throw enough money at it, we can do this like pretty frequently. Having to downsize that to like the 90-day window, you know, it could be challenging. And then also, like, Jim Ryan left last week, big champion of the the live service games things. It could have been one of those things where like that person was like, I'm leaving because the executive that was a champion of this is leaving too. This is troubled. And now like layoffs happened, which means there's probably no plans to release this game anytime soon. Until we probably start seeing them hire QA people again. But like, again, if some people were on like 2-3 year contracts, that's a sign that Naughty Dog were like, we're not going to be ready in 2 years. So go. Well,
even if you did a good job, even if, like, let's say you were a top tier quality assurance person for them, and in 18 months Naughty Dog calls you again, are you going back?
In this industry, probably.
Okay, because I was say you didn't finish the last contract.
Yeah. You might ask for different provisions in your contract.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, obviously. I'm just really, I'm really like, and I think this will make a fascinating, like, eventually, like, I'm just waiting for Schreier to do something cool with this, like, not this in general, but with what's going on at Naughty Dog, like, you know, in terms of like they wanted Sony Ben to help them, I think, to work on this specifically. So there, you know, and then to your point, like with Jim Ryan leaving, and, you know, like, let's be real, like, we probably, like, people internally at Sony, at least high up enough, probably knew about 3-4 weeks before we knew about Ryan leaving.
It's a complex situation, so probably even longer.
So, you know, the all these things and facets are happening, and I'm just wondering if any of these people, like this guy Anders, was at the table and going, that is a fantastic story driven idea, how do you spread it out over 12 weeks for me? Well, what are you talking about? Like, I need you to take it and release it every 14 days. Let's release a chunk to get them to come back. Oh no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, Naughty Dog's like, no, we don't do that. We just release it all at once. Like, we're just gonna really, and he's like, that's not how this works. And they're like, well, we do it because we're Naughty Dog. And he's like, that's not how this works. That's not what you brought me here to do.
You could have people internally at PlayStation being like, let Naughty Dog do Naughty Dog. And then you're just like, that's not why you hired me. And that's not what your, you know, CEO at the time is telling people we're doing. And you have to imagine, so like Naughty Dog, Evan Wells left, I think, earlier this year or last year, who was a co-founder of Naughty Dog. The other co-founder left years ago. Neil Druckmann got moved up in Naughty Dog as well. And I imagine Neil Druckmann, as one of the directors and lead writers of the TV show, probably isn't spending as much time with the studio. So I imagine, I don't want to say like turmoil at Naughty Dog, but there's probably like a lack of like daily leadership when like your president leaves and then the next person in line is also.
You're talking about a lack of presence.
Yes.
There's a lack of presence in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah. And that also can play a part in it, which is why this game has just kind of been stuck in development hell.
Well, the other crazy part is like if we believe it's true that they have two teams that they expand and contrast very easily. Like we've heard about okay, Last of Us team and Uncharted team. Okay, then they come together to finish something and then they split back up to Last of Us Part 2 and Uncharted 4 team. However it was. Like I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. But so now is it led to believe is it 3 teams?
So there were rumors that it was becoming 3 teams.
Yeah.
Because they're working on like a potential Last of Us sequel. They're working on there was rumors that they're working on like a space game, and then there was factions. And I'm assuming now they're gonna probably go back to like a 1 studio team, just because they probably can't afford to have the team split into 2. Yeah. Because they need a project sooner.
I 100% agree with what you're saying. But to me, that ultimately means right now is that this week or whatever, they probably said, you know what, all hands on deck, next Last of Us. Like that's what's
that's what I think is going to happen.
That's the safest play right now for Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Where we're X amount of years from, I don't even know what, 2 years from Part 2, 2 and 3 since it came out, 2 years at least.
That came out during the pandemic, 2020. So it's been 3 years.
Yeah, and we don't have an announced working teaser title from them at all.
Oh, we only know that Druckmann, I think, said he has the script for a 3rd game.
Yeah.
So that's at least worked out.
Yeah.
And the only good thing is maybe they could reuse some of the assets from Factions 2 because it's set in the same universe and just kind of move that over. But yeah, we're probably 2 years away from an announcement of their next game. And then
I feel like they could, at this point in time, I feel like they could take whatever they've done with Factions and truly make it a games as a service. Attach it to Last of Us Part 3, give it multiplayer, and build upon that.
The only problem is that's not what Jim Ryan's vision was at the time. Whoever's now in charge can do
you could still turn it into that though, because people that's the common thing. Like I think we bought it digitally, but like you and I probably deleted Part 2 and really haven't looked back, right? You probably didn't delete it. You moved it to cold storage.
Yes, I moved to cold storage because I halfway through a second playthrough of that game and then I just stopped because it was just depressing.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, but for the most part, but that was kind of that was the main reason I bought Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation 4 was the multiplayer. Like that's I that kept it there, but there was people playing it. Release your seasonal content, attach it to Last of Us Part 3, increase the units of that. People will buy it if the multiplayer is good just to play the multiplayer, and then maybe they experience the single player game, or the reverse, the single player players say, oh cool, this looks interesting, let me try it. I'm not reinventing the wheel here with what I'm saying. I'm aware of that. But it's just one of those things where then charge the seasonal content like built into it, like similar integration to like Modern Warfare and Warzone.
Mm-hmm.
Like Warzone you can download by itself if you just go to the store and download it, but it's integrated into Modern Warfare.
Yeah, but here's the thing, we just talked about it with the Creative Assembly thing where they tried to pivot and build off a foundation that was already there. You have to wonder if Factions 2 is one of those things where it's just like we just have to start from scratch, whatever that means for this game.
Yeah, but at this point in time, just release what you had on Last of Us 1 and just slowly build on it. Make a roadmap to say, hey, over the next 6 to 18 months, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good move, but I think there would be too much pride in terms of was a hat between your hands or whatever. Just like, hey, here's our best effort. I don't know if they want to take that, and there's still the Prestige Studio, though I think when Spider-Man 2 releases in 16 days, Insomniac can officially take that crown of we are the Prestige Studio. I think they are right now.
Damn, that game comes out in 2 weeks.
Yes, yeah, I can't wait. So yeah, no, I hate that this is happening right now. Epic Games laid off 800 people. No, Creative Assembly laid off people. Naughty Dog laid off people. The gaming industry is just kind of disgusting right now in terms of the layoffs. And it's unfortunate with the Naughty Dog one, but based on where Factions is, these layoffs kind of made sense in terms of if the game is actually on ice and there's nothing to run quality checks on, then and you had mentioned earlier of how far along or their sequels to The Last of Us or that other IP that they're working on, probably a really long fucking time. So you can't
even at this point, it's something on the scale of Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of like one central focus point that you played, but it had a great story to it. Like in terms of like, I'm sure Lost Legacy was easier to develop than any of the Uncharted at all.
Yeah, and that was an expansion that turned into its own standalone game.
Right.
And but that's also one of those things where when it comes to QA, it still might be longer than their contracts currently are, so they laid those people off. Or the people that they specifically hired for this QA were multiplayer focused QA testers, because
And don't get me wrong. This is not the end of the world for Naughty Dog. This is not going to be like I'm not saying Naughty Dog's at risk of closing. They're not even close to that. No. Just remember, Insomniac released Fuse.
Yes. Yeah. They said they basically said, "Fuck you, PlayStation. We're leaving you forever," and they made Fuse.
Yeah.
And here they are now.
And Sunset Overdrive. So.
Banger. Sunset Overdrive, good. Nick.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like I'm just saying, the studios can respond from this. Years ago, Sony Santa Monica was in huge trouble when they canceled their sci-fi game and then they said, okay, that's enough. Like, go get Barlog. Let's do God of War, and they went and got Barlog and did God of War, and that's the drum that I've been beating, is that like you said it with Druckmann doing whatever he's doing, which is fine. I just want to know who is leading the factions team, and now it sounds like you could just point at like 6 different people, and 3 of them have left.
Yeah, I mean, if specifically when you mentioned Sony Santa Monica, if you exclude the games that they assisted on, they released God of War Ascension in 2013, and they didn't have another game till God of War 2018. Yeah. So that,
and then 2015, 2016, we heard about this epic, sci-fi story-driven game that just got canned.
Yeah, but like when I point that out, Naughty Dog could find himself in a situation where they are just going to go quiet, head down, and work on something, and it's going to be like a 5-year, 6-year gap between their next release. And I guarantee that next release is going to be like the Naughty Dog quality level we expect, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on it, and they're going to go back to doing what they do, and that's make like stellar first, single player games. And studios sometimes go through this, I thought you brought up a good point in terms of like Insomniac made Fuse, and that was a really dark time for Insomniac, and they were able to get through that. So Naughty Dog will be fine. They're just in a tight spot. And I think it also does tie in with Jim Ryan leaving, in terms of like, if the biggest cheerleader for the live service games is now gone, Naughty Dog might be in a quiet time because they need to figure out what is leadership's pride and joy.
Well, I'd be worried if I was Sometimes Always Monster, or I'm sorry, Firewalk Studios, and I'd be worried if I was Haven Studios, because like to your point, Ryan's the one that spearheaded this,
especially the European studios too. Like that they were.
Those are the 2 that come to mind, just because we know that they have announced service games.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't consider, as much as people hate it when I say it, I don't consider Bungie in that window, because Bungie has creative control of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like
Bungie
can do what they want.
I feel like Bungie would need to have like 3 bombs in a row before PlayStation would.
No. I'm just talking about in terms of worried about.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like they're fine. I think Bungie would need to like have 3 bombs in a row before. But even the new
CEO of Sony, the person that takes over for Jim Ryan's not going to walk into Bungie Studios and be like, "I'm the boss. This is what you're going to do. What I tell you to do." Bungie's like, "Get out."
Yeah, it's kind of like in sports when like a team drafts someone in like the first round and they suck, but they're like, we drafted you in the first round, so we're going to.
You have to play.
You have to play. We don't care. You could see that with some of these studios where they're just like, or specifically with Bungie, of just like, we spent a lot of
versus
money.
Bungie's like Aaron Rodgers, that he just blows his Achilles. Okay, go sit down over there and get better, and we'll talk to you next year. Yeah. Like versus somebody else that's like,
we traded too many draft picks for you, so you were going to work eventually for us. I'm super curious, even though we talked about it last week in terms of like, Jim Ryan will probably be replaced by someone we don't know, but I'm just curious about like how that person's going to present themselves, how that person's going to.
Do they do? Here's my state of PlayStation. Here's my vision.
Yes.
Here's my goals. Do they do like that, like a state of gaming for them? Like, is that something that like Phil Spencer? I feel like kind of does that.
Yeah.
Periodically.
Is it going to be someone's going to be
like,
openly on Twitter, doing stuff?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be super curious about that in terms of like and we'll hear stories from like the Jason Schreiers, the Jeff Grubbs about like mandates sent to studios about like what's going to happen. But I'm so curious about like all those newly acquired studios that were acquired for live service games, like what's going to happen with those studios. I want to know about the Haven studio in terms of like what they pitched and what they showed. Seemed like two completely different ideas, and I wonder.
Well, but we don't really know what they showed.
No, I know, but like what they were pitching almost sounded like this crazy, cool, creative platform, and then what they showed is like, here's a third-person shooter game.
Yeah, I mean, what they talked about was multiplayer dreams.
Yes, yeah.
Essentially, and what we saw was GTA.
Yeah, it was Payday.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and I wonder if we'll see them like, oh, we have another game in development soon as a new person gets in and might not like games as a service. Like the next like year is going to be super fascinating for PlayStation.
As well as Xbox, because they got to release their content that they've been purchasing.
Yeah, but Xbox can't release shit. Like, like that's unfortunately they can't.
So, all right. So we apparently have something delayed here.
I've
heard a little bit about this. Yeah. PlayStation hides Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic's announcement videos and deletes announcement tweets.
Yeah.
You have to unpack this for me a little bit, sir.
So you remember PlayStation at one of their showcases about 2 years ago put out a teaser trailer working with Aspyr and Embracer about their remastering the popular Knights of the Old Republic game, and people were loving it. And then last year we found out that PlayStation pulled their funding from it because they're like, this looks like shit.
This was at the same time that they just like released the original version like on Switch.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, it was around that same time, and this was also the same time that they announced like the Quantic Dream Star Wars game that's coming out.
Yeah.
So what we learned last year was PlayStation was not happy with where the game was going, and they may have pulled their funding, and were going to potentially look at a different studio to work on the game. I think maybe Saber Interactive was going to take over.
Sounds right,
then we didn't hear anything about it. PlayStation was still like going to fund it, but they wanted new developers on it. And now someone realized that all of the traces for Knights of the Old Republic on PlayStation's YouTube channels has been deleted, and then also the tweets bragging and announcing the game have been deleted as well. So this sounds like PlayStation like kind of quietly maybe canceling it, or this has been super delayed and they just don't want the trailers that may have had like a vague window on it to be out there in the wild. Mm-hmm. Again, it seems like it's a very cutthroat season right now in the video games industry. But this is definitely one of those announcements that was announced way too soon, apparently, because like after they announced it, within a year, we heard that they were still kind of pitching to PlayStation like what they could do with this announcement or IP. But yeah, it's not a fun time right now. Look, even though video games are coming out right now, it just seems like a lot of things are being axed or delayed, canceled, bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Super
all right.
delayed.
Yeah, infinite delay.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're playing and watching. So I know, just talking to Michael before we recorded, both of us will be a little short on this. So I've had a little bit of craziness going on at work, as per usual lately. But we went to Cedar Point on Saturday. Again, Cedar Point's about 2.5 hours from my home. We bought season passes this year, and it was Halloween weekends, like they do a lot of the fall stuff and the Halloween stuff. Mm-hmm. I am very neutral on Halloween. Like, people do what they do. They have fun. I'm not somebody that likes to, dress up and go crazy and full makeup myself and everything like that. But I think a lot of that stuff looks cool. Like, I'm super impressed with cosplayers and people that dress up in intricate costumes and do stuff. And haunted houses interest me, but I think at this point in time, some of them have just gone a little bit way over the top.
You don't want to sign up for the one that you have to sign a waiver for them to waterboard you?
No.
Okay.
I have an 8-year-old child. So we did go, and Owen is pretty good with Halloween. Like, we've done some stuff where he's done like haunted trails before, where I thought he would be freaking out, and he's like, that's really cool, and somebody will scare him and he'll look at him and laugh, you know, like he's scared for that second, but then he realizes, like, he knows, like, I told him, like, hey, like, the little ground rules, they can't touch you, you know, don't worry about it, like, they're, you know, like, and he's like, okay. And he did pretty good on the haunted house for about the first 60%, and then something happened and he lost it.
Yeah.
Like, so this is the most crowded that I've seen Cedar Point this year that I've been
Halloween
there, and that I
events.
can remember at all, man. I was like, because Angela and I were talking about it, like, in the car on the way there, and I'm like, have you, like as we were getting near there, like, getting near the park, like, I could see the navigation on my Google Maps thing, like, the time get a little longer. I'm like, oh man. I was like, have we looked at how busy this is going to be? And we, you know, like, we had like hoodie and jeans, and it was supposed to be like 70 degrees, and, you know, like, in Cedar Point's right by the water, so if you get the breeze going, it was like 72 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, no wind. That's hot.
Yeah. And then you
Like,
add all the body heat from all the people in the
yeah,
crowd. Yeah.
so that was a little bit of a rough day. And on top of it, like, my watch, like, still functions, but I can't see the screen anymore. And I think I banged it against riding a coaster or something like that. So I gotta, like, my Fitbit's like totally acting up right now. So I had like it averaged to above average Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, today's Wednesday, have been work. So I really haven't had a chance. Michael and I were talking about before we recorded, I do have Assassin's Creed Mirage that Ubisoft was kind enough to send to me. I'm on PC, so I can mess up with it with my ROG Ally as well as on PC. It's past the embargo. I got it late. I got it late because I requested it late. And I do have intentions of playing that. The thing I'm most intrigued about is it sounds like it is a very short it's a short game for Assassin's Creed history. So I think I'm hearing that it's like 15 to 22
Something like
hours. Yeah. So I'll be super interested in that. And this also is supposed to be setting up isn't there another,
There's like, they announced like that, like
a hub game or
yeah,
something?
like there's a hub, and this is one of the branches in that hub. Or they poorly announced that the future of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah. It should be the beginning
just,
of like how they're gonna run things.
yeah, I'm just intrigued by not, like, I look at like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I'm like, no.
I don't even look at those as Assassin's Creed games at a certain point, or at least not my Assassin's Creed, basically, when I look at those games.
Yeah. It's not Assassin's Creed Brotherhood or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, or Assassin's Creed 2 or whatever. So, that is the tentative plan. So, to check that out, hell, if you're listening to this first thing Thursday morning, I might even be streaming in Thursday afternoon. I don't know. It depends on how I feel. I've had a really rough day, 4 or 5 days at work. I'm definitely gonna sleep for a little bit tomorrow. And it's like 82 degrees in Michigan in October,
Same.
and it's starting to mess. It's starting to mess with me, man.
I like Sarah was asking, like, when am I gonna wear my like jacket she bought me, and I'm like, when it's not 80 degrees when I come home. Like,
I was playing softball last night in the fall at 9:30 at night in a t-shirt.
yeah, no, like I was, I woke up, went to work, or like I woke up and I looked, it was 60 degrees, and then I, did the like ask, my Google thing, like, what's the weather like, and it's gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be 88 today, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's Angela's turning the air conditioning on her phone on the way home because we know the house is going to be warm.
Yeah.
Like in October. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I just, like,
I'm so worried
degrees,
we're gonna skip
10 degrees less would be nice. 10 degrees, but then it's gonna, like, I'm gonna take Owen trick or treating. It's gonna fucking snow.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm so worried we're gonna skip sweater weather this year. Like, it's gonna just,
you call it sweater weather. I mean, like, for me, like hoodie, jeans, and boots.
that's what I mean.
You know,
like hoodie weather.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't wore a hoodie this year, and like I love wearing my hoodies.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling we're just gonna skip that. We're gonna hit November, and it's gonna be like, oh, here's the Arctic chill or something. Be upset.
Yeah, I mean, like I liked having the windows cracked open and waking up in the morning and like taking the covers off, like, oh wow, it's cold. This is great, or that that crispness in the air, and it's just like I'm just worried, like you said, it's gonna be 80 degrees this week, and then in 2 weeks it's gonna be snow.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right, so what have you been playing and watching?
All right, in terms of playing and watching, I've just been. My work has also been kind of crazy, and I've been just kind of like dead tired after work. So, I've been trophy hunting on the PS3. I know it's the weirdest thing, but I've just been going through my like downloadable games and just kind of grinding out trophies that I just never got. I'm actually only doing it because I'm trying to. For some reason, I was like, I want to finally unlock a gift card from that PlayStation Stars program. And one of the things I need to do is get like 104 rare trophies. So I've literally just loaded up my PS3 because I know most of those games had difficult trophies that are guaranteed to be rare once I unlock them. So I've just been kind of grinding trophies out. This upcoming weekend, I'm on call for work, so I might just end up replaying Miles Morales and getting that platinum. Because I never got that platinum because it required you to do a New Game Plus playthrough. So I'm just going to probably New Game Plus Miles Morales because it's only like a 4-hour game, really, especially if you're not going to do side content. So like I do plan to play that, and I don't think it'll burn me out for when Spider-Man 2 comes out because that's always a fear. Like I don't want to like Zelda myself or Horizon myself like Dave has done before. So I'm probably gonna mess with that. I did go video game hunting, but I only ended up picking up Siren on the PS3 for that. I forgot that I pre-ordered Pikmin 1 and 2 on the Switch, so that arrived last week, and I was like,
I wish I had your kind of budget that I could just forget I ordered something.
I mean, you don't wish that, but like it definitely like behind me, like.
For the record, I think that I meant to tell you this too. I think you'd be very proud of Owen. I know you haven't. I don't think you've ever met him.
No.
But I was talking to him earlier this week, and I said, "Hey, bud," I said, so right now, and we'll eventually probably get both. But I said, Super Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2 release on the same day. Like, which one do you want? Like you can I don't even think I mentioned to him that we'll get both, but I'm like, hey, which one do you want? We can pick one for this day, and he's like, oh, I want Spider-Man.
Hell yeah, that's a smart kid. Mario will always be there.
But he's like, well, I'll probably watch more stuff on YouTube with Mario Wonder and people playing it than I will Spider-Man. He's like, I'd rather just play Spider-Man and experience it myself.
Exactly. That smart kid right there. Smart kid. Like, I think it would be a harder decision for me if Super Mario RPG was coming out at the same time as Spider-Man. But yeah, smart move there. But yeah, literally that's all I've been doing for playing and watching is just kind of playing random things as I prepare for Spider-Man to come out because I might take like an extra day off from work for Spider-Man because that's how excited I am for it. I plan to play it that weekend and potentially finish it that weekend.
Come to think of it, I think I might have given myself the weekend of the 21st, 22nd off because the 20th is a Friday, right?
Yes, it is. So like I might be giving myself that day. Just because I have some PTO that I have to burn or I lose it before the end of the year. So like I might end up using some for Spider-Man. But yeah, that's it for me, Dave.
Okay. So we didn't do any questions or comments, and I think Michael and I are both okay with a little bit of a shorter show today, which by shorter is like 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe.
Somehow,
so yeah, so yeah, of course we did. So as always, you can send us questions using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can do that anytime you're listening to this. If something comes out of this conversation, we would love to see questions from what our previous episodes or comments that you have for, like based on something that we said. I hope it sounds better today. I do appreciate the feedback on the mic. We are, like I did some unplugging and replugging and rebooting before we recorded today to see if that helps. And I think I tried to like just not get loud and animated like I did last week, as loud and as animated as I did last week. But I know most of you kind of like, as long as the microphone doesn't sound crazy. I know some of you get a kick out of aggravated or animated Dave sometimes. So,
yeah.
But I appreciate the feedback on that. So please continue to send us questions, send us feedback, review the show, share the show, help us grow, join the community, check out our Discord, check out our Facebook group, hang out with us or tweet at us on Twitter. I'm not calling it X, never.
No.
So you can follow us on Twitter. The main account is at Digital Days Pod. Michael's is at the first MJC, and I am at Good Dave Hunt. And I hope everyone has a great week and keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.